Hey everyone, we're going to be going over the circumference 9.1. This was the last lesson in your packet, so some of you might not have gotten to it before you turned it in. Circumference is the distance around a circle. So if you kind of remember back to when we were talking about perimeter, perimeter is the distance around this rectangle. Circumference is exactly the same idea. The only thing is it's specific to circles. All right. If it's not a circle, you're typically talking about perimeter. But if you're talking about a circle, you're going to be using circumference. So a couple of vocabulary that we need to go over is first we need to talk about the center point. The center of a circle is what everything is based off of. For example, the first vocabulary that you need to know is called the diameter. So the diameter is the distance across a circle. It does not matter if it's horizontal. It doesn't matter if it's vertical. It can literally look like that. It can be this. It can be this. It can be this. It doesn't matter. As long as it goes from one point of the circle to the other point of the circle and passes through the center, it is called a diameter. And the distance from the center to any point, so let's say, I don't know, that, or even that, or this, it doesn't really matter. As long as it touches the center and touches the edge of the circle, it is called a radius. Okay. As you can probably guess, the radius will be half the diameter, because if the diameter goes all the way, but the radius only goes to the center, then that means the radius will only be half the length. All right. There are a couple of ways to solve for the circumference. There are two equations you need to know. The first one will be, actually I'll do it, write it out. C circumference is equal to pi times diameter, and I'll go over what pi means in a bit. The other one is C is equal to 2 pi r. Now, typically, you're going to leave pi as pi because pi is a decimal that goes on forever and it doesn't have any pattern. So it'll always be inaccurate when you try to do math with it. But we can always round to what we think is the closest answer. So for the most part, we use pi is equal to the value of 3.14. Some of you might know this and some of you might be able to know past this, but in terms of math, the only digits that really matter is 3.14. Less common is we use the value 22 over 7. Now, we only use this 22 over 7 when we have a diameter or radius that is a multiple of 7. It makes math very easy, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. It has very limited uses, but you can still use it. So let's do finding the circumference. So let's do find the circumference of the circle to the nearest hundredth. All right, so we have 11 centimeters for the diameter. If we're given the diameter, we're going to be using this one because it uses diameter. If we're given the radius, like in this one, we're going to be using the bottom one. So for this one, let's do the circumference of the circle if it has 11 cm. So if the distance across is 11 cm, the circumference is going to be pi times the diameter. We're using the diameter one because they gave us diameter. And now we're just going to kind of plug in what we know. We know that we can use 3.14 for pi, and diameter will equal 11. And from here, it's just multiplication. So 3.14 multiplied by 11 is equal to 314, put the 0, 413. If I went a little bit too quickly there, you can pause it and do the math yourself. but this is how it comes out. And then remember that there were 2 decimal places that we used in the problem, so there will be 2 decimal places in the answer. So the answer here will be 34.54 cm. Remember, units are very important. All right. Now let's see what it would look like if we had a radius. Is there one here? Yeah, here. 14. Has a radius of 14. Let's just put this here. 14 feet. Why not? So right now it has radius, so we're going to be using the radius equation, 2 times pi times r. C is equal to 2 times pi times r. Let's see what that looks like. C is equal to 2. Now, for pi, remember I gave you 2 possible values. You could either use 3.14 or you could use 22 over 7. So remember I told you you would use the 22 over 7 if your radius was a multiple of 7. So I'm going to do that right now. If this is a little bit too confusing to always be thinking of the multiples of 7, just never use 22 over 7. 3.14 is a fair thing, and I will always give you credit for using that. 22 over 7 is only if you're confident in using that shortcut. But let me show you why that shortcut's going to be really nice. So if I use 22 over 7 times radius, which is 14, let's work that out. I'm going to leave the 2 aside for now, and I'm going to focus on the 22 over 7 multiplied by 14. And remember, all whole numbers are just over 1. You can put any number over 1 and it will be fine. It won't change the value. Now, cross-canceling. We kind of went over cross-canceling in the discussion we had on Tuesday. If you have a fraction multiplying, you can cross-cancel these numbers if they're divisible by the same thing. In this case, both numbers are divisible by 7. So if I divide this by 7 and I divide this by 7, I end up with, this becomes a 2 and this becomes a 1. So if I multiply, 22 times 2 is 44 and 1 times 1 is 1. So it makes my answer very, very nice, very pretty. And then I need to remember that I need to bring back my 2. So C is equal to 2 multiplied by, we already answered this one, so we're going to get 44, which means C is equal to 88. 88 feet. All right, so that's how you use both of them, but there's a part of this that's a little bit hard. It's a multi-step problem having to do with this. A circular pond has a circumference of 628 feet. A model boat is moving directly across the pond along a radius at a rate of 5 feet per second. How long does it take to get the boat from the edge of the pond to the center? So this is a multi-step question. Let's think about what we need right now. We know that we have a pond. We know that the circumference of this pond is 628 feet. Right? Now, we know that a boat is going from the edge of the pond to the center of the pond along the radius. Okay? We don't know what this radius is, but we do know that the boat is going at a speed of 5 feet per second. So let's take a look at this. It looks like we know the speed of the boat going down this way. We just need to know how far it needs to go. So it looks like we're looking for radius. We're going to go back to our circumference equations and pick which one of them is going to give me a radius and which one isn't. In this case, the second equation is going to give me the radius. So I'm going to have circumference C is equal to 2 pi r. Now the reason I chose this equation and not the other equation is because I want the radius, and this is the one that has it. Now I'm going to fill in whatever I can. I know that my circumference is 628. I know that pi is 3.14. But I don't know my r, so I'm going to keep it as r. Now, I'm going to just multiply out my right side. 3.14 times 2 is 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. I used 2 decimal places, so I have 2 decimal places. And look at that. So now I have this. 6.28r is equal to 628. So now I divide both sides. Divide both sides by 6.28 because I want to move things away from my variable. These cancel, and now I have 628 divided by 6.28. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Remember, when you're dividing decimals, the number one thing you do not want is a decimal on the outside. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a whole number by moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So whatever I do here, I'm going to do here, 2 places to the right. All right. So now this is 628 divided by 62,800. How many times does 628 go into 628? Once. So that becomes 628. And then look at that. How many times does it go into 0? 0 times. And how many times does it go into that 0? Also 0 times. So the final answer is, oh, not the final answer, but the radius is 100 feet. So right now, we know that x is equal to 100 feet. But we're not done yet, right? The final question is, how long does it take to get the boat from the edge of the pond to the center? So right now, we know that this boat has to go 100 feet, going 5 feet per second. How many seconds does it take? Well, if you remember how speed works, you're just going to divide the distance by the speed, and it'll give us our seconds. And I'll show you how that works. We have 100 feet, and I'm going to put that over 1, and we're going to multiply it by, or we're not multiply, we're going to divide it by 5 feet per second. Yeah? So let's look what this looks like. 100 divided by 5. And there you have it. So right now, it would take us 20. Now, take a look at this. 5 feet per second. If you remember in a fraction, if you have the same thing on top and on bottom, for example, if I put 3 over 3, that just cancels to 1, right? 5 over 5, same thing. It just equals 1. So if I have feet over feet, guess what? It cancels. And so I just have 1 there. So the only unit I have left is seconds. So that means that the final answer is it takes 20 seconds to get from the edge of the pond to the center. Okay? So Yeah, that's it. Have a good day.